Okay, just reviewing the last video, apologies for the fact that there's a slight delay in the speech and video syncing. I don't think I can do anything about that, but I think it's still valuable to try this and press on with that lag, despite the fact that it irks me. So I want to look at the remaining portion of this scene, of Act 3, Scene 1. And really, for me, the purpose of looking at this is that the discussion between Viola and Olivia, or Cesario and Olivia, is about that. It's about two of the preoccupations of the play, which is the nature of love and attraction, but also the nature of deception and sort of manipulation. Because while Olivia is sort of professing the fact that she loves Cesario, and we can question what that's based on, Viola is also talking about the fact that she can't possibly love Olivia, but at the same time exposing but not exposing. If Olivia was as smart as, say, Feste is, she would get what Cesario Viola is trying to say. But Viola is saying it in such a way that without that insight, really, it doesn't make much sense to Olivia, and perhaps sort of encourages her to keep going and keep having that interest. So after sort of Sir Andrew has been sort of blown away by Viola's or Cesario's very formal nature, which leads to him being quite worried about the challenge that Cesario presents in terms of him being able to woo Olivia himself. Olivia obviously comes in. So if you look at I'm on page 75 of the script. If you look at this, we've got Olivia begins to reveal her true feelings for Cesario. Over the page, just using the summaries at the top to set the frame for us, Olivia hints at the agonies of love that she feels, which is sort of ironic given that she hasn't had a lot of contact with Cesario, so how can she be in such agony? It's perhaps a little bit melodramatic. She says that her feelings are clearly visible, and I think that depends on how it's performed, and we'll see how Mark Rylance here as the actor does certainly play into that very flirtatious, sort of schoolgirl-esque, giggly, exposure of love. And I think what that adds is it adds the fact that it's such a superficial love, because it's all sort of, this giggly sort of nonsense that's going on, rather than a more austere, serious performance of infatuation. It's very, very flirtatious and silly. And so it makes the love not seem as real, I think. After seeming to dismiss Viola, though, Olivia calls Cesario, I should say, back. And Cesario says, a very important line, that is, I am not what I am, trying to warn Olivia away. And then on the next page, the summary reads, Olivia admiring Viola's beauty and convinced that her own feelings are obvious, declares her love for Cesario. Viola, however, swears that no woman will ever have her heart except for she herself, which of course is sort of a play on the gender flipping stuff that's going on. Okay, let's have a look at the scene, and I'll pause to discuss some interesting language, but also pause to talk a little bit more detail about some of those acting choices. But I think the thing here to pay attention to, particularly, and take note of, are the pauses, the reactions, the way that Rylance, which is the actor that's playing Olivia, very practiced, much older than he seems, Shakespearean actor, a tried and true performer at the Globe Theatre, how he chooses to perform Olivia. And this will become important when we start looking at the film version, because the film version plays Olivia very differently. Okay, let's have a look at it.
Most excellent, accomplished lady, the heavens rain odours on you.
That youth's a rare courtier. Rain odours, well.
My matter hath no voice, lady, but to your own most pregnant and vouchsafed ear.
Odours, pregnant, and vouchsafed. I get them all three already.
Let the garden door be shut and leave me to my hearing. Give me your hand, sir.
My duty, madam, and most humble service.
What is your name?
Cesario is your servant's name, fair princess.
My servant, sir. 'Twas never merry world since lowly feigning was called compliment. You are servant to the Count Orsino, youth.
And he is yours, and his must needs be yours. Your servant's servant is your servant, madam.
For him, I think not on him. For his thoughts, would they were blanks rather than filled with me.
Madam, I come to whet your gentle thoughts on his behalf.
Oh, by your leave, I pray you, I bade you never speak again of him.
So if you notice in this choice, there's a lot of action that isn't suggested at all in the script. And being involved in such a seemingly purposeless task as clipping tiny little pieces off this ivy that's growing on the stage, I think it gives time for the reactions, and it gives time to establish the tone of their interaction. So if you were to try and nail down a description of the tone that we've just seen, it is essentially quite terse, quite sharp. You know, Viola or Cesario is trying to impress upon Olivia that Orsino is the one that loves Olivia, that Cesario is there to try and implore Olivia to grant Orsino an audience, and of course Olivia's reactions are very short, sharp, and to the point. We have the pointing of the secateurs, for instance, which, if you think about, you know, the significance of that image, what is Olivia doing? She's shaking a sharp implement in Cesario's direction. So it's quite a harsh action. Compare that to what's to come when they start talking instead about Olivia's feelings towards Cesario. The veil gets lifted. The tone changes, the actions are quite different. Even in that small moment there was the touching of the hand when, you know, when Olivia was talking about complimenting Cesario. Let's keep watching.
But would you undertake another suit? I had rather hear you to solicit that than music from the sphere.
Dear lady,
Give me leave, beseech you.
So notice even the pause in the lines, you know, I bade you never speak of him again. And then there's this long pause before there's more speech. Now, if you look at the exchange of Olivia's there, starting at line 92, oh, by your leave, I pray you, I bade you never speak of him. That's the tone which was terse. That was the tone which was sort of aggressive and sort of warning, to more clearly signal the transition to a more flirtatious tone, to something that's about someone else, in this case, Cesario. There's this choice of blocking where literally the side is completely altered. So Olivia moves from one side of the stage to the other, faces a different direction. There's even the perfunctory oh sort of noise, which is flirtatious. And the audience is given that visual signal that there's a change. There's a change in the way that Olivia's speaking. Likewise, there's a change in what she's speaking about. Here goes the veil.
After the last enchantment you did here, a ring in chase of you. So did I abuse myself, my servant, and I fear me you. Under your hard construction must I sit to force that on you in a shameful cunning which you knew none of yours. What might you think? Have you not set mine honor at the stake and baited it with all the unmuzzled thoughts that tyrannous heart can think? To one of your receiving, enough is shown. A cypress, not a bosom, hides my heart. So let me hear you speak.
So notice that even just the costuming choice here, when they're talking about the reason that Cesario was there before, which was regarding being an envoy for Orsino, Olivia was very closed. We couldn't see her face. There wasn't that personal engagement. But then just lifting the veil, it exposes Olivia's face. It connects her more closely to Cesario. And even in that little exchange there, we see Olivia drawing Cesario towards her. And so we get a more visceral sense of the emotion that's present. You know, if you look at where I've paused here at Mark Rylance's facial expression, there's a look of concern, the furrowed brow and things like that. It tells us that there is some real emotional sense here, which is interesting because one might question whether or not there's been enough contact between Viola or Cesario and Olivia for Olivia to have any real romantic infatuation that's based on anything other than some superficial quality. Let's have a look at how Viola responds to this admission of love from Olivia. Now, take note before we play this that there seems to be a shared line of iambic pentameter. I pity you. That's a degree to love. Is it a quick response in your mind? Is it a long pause? Let's see what they choose and think about why they choose it.
I pity you.
That's a degree to love.
No, not agrees, but 'tis a vulgar proof that very oft we pity enemies.
Why?
So-
Let me...
So notice there that they chose to play it very quickly. So is it excitement? Is Olivia looking, Viola's essentially rebuffed Olivia, or Cesario has said, no, I don't love you. I pity you is the exact opposite of what probably you would want to hear. But Viola's response is really immediate searching for some confirmation of her actual, hope that this will work out. When Viola replies again, this is something that we do of people we don't like, pity them, then there is a longer pause there, and that's suggested in the iambic pentameter. So that very oft we pity enemies is actually a full 10 beats, but there's still a pause. There's a choice in the acting. There's a choice in the delivery of the dialogue for there to be a pause before Olivia's line to show the reaction. And so what we get in the performance is this sense of the reaction that we don't get in the script.
Thinks 'tis time to smile again. Oh, world, how apt the poor are to be proud. If one should be a prey, how much the better to fall before the lion than the wolf. The clock upbraids me with the waste of time. Be not afraid, good youth, I will not have you. And yet, when wit and youth is come to harvest, your wife is like to reap a proper man. There lies your way due west.
So without even thinking about the language, what does the tone of that delivery present? What it presents is someone going, oh, never mind then, it's sort of like backtracking or backpedaling. Olivia's very dramatically and seriously exposed how she feels. Cesario has rebuffed her, and it's like, oh, never mind. Off you go. Of course, that's not how you feel, and there seems to be no concern, and uses excuse to move away. And if you look at what the blocking adds, she's physically moving back to the other side of the stage. That was where there was this more serious and more proper tonal quality. So as the summary at the top of the page suggests, Olivia is going to call her back. So call Viola back, call Cesario back. And so watch the blocking and watch the performance and watch the tone of voice that signals moving back into that exposed space, back into that romantic realm.
Then westward ho, grace and good disposition attend your ladyship. You'll nothing, madam, to my lord by me. Stay
So if you look at that, what we have in the script is the word stay. And then obviously as a single beat, one beat of iambic pentameter, stay, with the exclamation mark. The exclamation mark and the absence of 9 beats of language leave a lot of space for interpretation. And so the interpretation here on the actor's part is there's no indication that Sir Andrew comes back in. There's no sort of indication of the loss of a shoe. There's no indication of, Olivia feigning injury or anything like that. There's none of that. But the choice there, because of the absence of dialogue and the suggestion of a long pause, allows the director, allows the actors, allows the stage manager and the scholars that are working on this performance to communicate what they think helps to communicate the sense of the dialogue. And here it is, this return to that flirtatious tone. Look at what Olivia has done. Look at what Mark Rylance's character here has done. Feigned injury and feigned the need for support to draw Cesario back in. And then that's undercut by the aggression towards Sir Andrew. The throwing the basket, the yelling and the sort of husky sort of tone. This very high-pitched voice is the frailty of the woman that is being portrayed, but there's things that subvert that at the same time. Very, very clever choices in terms of the director and very, very subtle juxtaposing of tonal qualities to ensure that the audience understands that we're moving back into this romantic space where the proper nature of this very civilized society type is going to be broken down because of the power of this romantic attraction.
I prithee tell me what thou thinkst of me.
That you do think you are not what you are.
If I think so, I think the same of you.
Then think you right, I am not what I am.
Okay, so a very important line, then think you right, I am not what I am. But notice as well that the volume has gone up, that they're sort of shouting at each other. There's a desperation. There's a little desperation in Olivia's voice because she's desperate to implore Cesario to love her. But Cesario, of course, is desperate not to be loved by Olivia because, of course, Cesario and the audience, the dramatic irony is the audience understands why Cesario doesn't want Olivia to be professing her love. It's very awkward because, of course, she's a woman. The tone choice, the heightened vocal register, the pace is quickened. And so all of that implies that desperation, which doesn't come through in the script. This is the same iambic beat that it was, further up the page. But the tone is different. That tonal quality comes through in the performance. That is an addition that we get in the performance that we don't get on the script.
I would you were as I would have you be.
Would it be better, madam, than I am? I wish it might, for now I am your fool.
Oh, what a deal of scorn looks beautiful in the contempt and anger of his lip. A murderous guilt shows not itself more soon than love that would seem hid. Love's night is noon.
So notice here that this is an aside. Think about the physical blocking of the actors. So even if you went back and watched that interaction again, what you can see is there's moments where they choose to step forward and towards each other. There's moments where they choose to step back and away from each other. And there's moments where they turn, where they face away from each other. This is a moment where they're moving back. Obviously, the aside works best. An aside is where the other actor on the stage or the other character on the stage is not meant to be able to hear what they say. And so having a large space and having Rylance face the audience and address them directly signals that within Shakespeare's stage language. But now we have the turning, and if you look at the two characters facing one another, that's the signal that it's the end of the aside. Rylance very quickly moves back towards Cesario to support that the end of the aside, whereas the script doesn't signal where the aside ends. Okay, what does the script do? It uses Cesario's name. Cesario, by the rose of spring, by maidhood, honour, truth, and everything. I love thee so that Morga, all thy pride, blah, 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 blah. That's what the signal in the script. But what we get additionally in the stagecraft is that we get the positioning or the blocking of the characters, the movement, and tonal qualities, facial expressions. All of those things are added in, and we can describe and discuss those additions in how they highlight the purpose of this discussion.
Cesario, by the roses of the spring, by maidhood, honor, truth, and everything. I love thee so that Morga, all thy pride, nor wit nor reason can my passion hide. Do not extort thy reasons from this clause, for that I woo thou therefore hast no cause, but rather reason thus with reason fetter. Love sought is good, but given unsought is better.
So think about the dialogue here. Obviously, we've got 3 repetitions of couplets. So pride and hide, clause and cause, fetter and better. And then Viola responds in turn with 3 couplets. So youth, truth, none, alone is still a rhyme. It's a partial rhyme, but it is a rhyme. And more and deplore are all couplets. Now, when we step up the nature of the poetry, in this case the rhyme, we step up the importance of the dialogue. Look at how the action reinforces that. Olivia has bent down on her knees. This is the Lady of Illyria, one of the highest nobles, bowing down to a servant. What does that add with the highlighting of the language? She's literally imploring Cesario, begging. And Cesario has sympathy for this, because if you look at what Cesario or Viola is doing, moving towards Olivia and trying to be gentle, the idea of doing that, I think highlights or reminds us that Viola understands unrequited love and understands that. But the deception comes in because she doesn't let Olivia off the hook. She can't. And perhaps doesn't have enough reason to do that. Perhaps that's the judgment that we can make. Olivia does evoke sympathy from us in this moment. Like Viola says, we pity Olivia here because she's very vulnerable. And if you think about even the stumbling around the word everything in line 135 of this scene, there's, again, that acting choice highlights the desperation. The acting choice highlights and adds in and elicits that sympathy from us more strongly in the performance than it does in the script.
By innocence I swear, and by my youth I have one heart, one bosom, and one truth, and that no woman has, nor never none, shall mistress be of it, save I alone, and so adieu, good madam, nevermore will I my master's tears to you deplore.
Yet come again! For thou perhaps mayst move that heart which now abhors to like his love.
So we laugh at that. You know, if you see the audience reaction is to laugh at that, but really what it communicates, the addition, not suggesting the stage direction any way that they exit, what we get is the frustration. What we get is a clearer sense of what unrequited love is and what it does to people. And this is the consequence of Viola's deception, is to lead to the hardship in Olivia. The consequence we can also see is that Olivia's very torn. You know, if you go back, there's breaking in her voice. The actor modulates the way they deliver the lines so that their voice breaks. You know, they do have little cracks and things coming through. You can hear or sense in the way the line is delivered the idea that this is hurting Viola to have to see someone experience unrequited love like she herself is experiencing, and for her to be the cause of it. You get that in the way the line is delivered, which you don't get in the script. You can get the subtext by interpreting the dialogue, the actual lines, the words, but it's not until you add in the delivery and the tone and the modulation of the voice that you actually are pushed in that direction. So it makes it clearer, it makes it more forceful. That communication and that theme or preoccupation comes through really well. And then it's added to by the additional way that Olivia exits. The frustration is a counterpoint to that empathy. Yes, we laugh at it because it's a funny moment, but it does have a purpose beyond that laugh. So that's Act 3, Scene 1. And I'll stop the video here because probably half an hour is enough of that. But hopefully that's given you something not only to understand the scene and the significance of the scene, but to perhaps understand some of the things that we need to look at when we look at comparison and adaptation. Those ideas that things are added or highlighted and the way that that connects to the ideas of the play. You could try writing something about that scene, about that moment, thinking about the feedback that I've given you on your first piece of writing to try and get used to talking about those things that are used, the modality of the text and what it adds to our understanding of what the text is doing.